President Muhammadu Buhari is calling on political leaders to stay focused and uphold the ultimate objective of promoting the interests of the country rather than engage in self-centeredness, which he says led to the loss of about 1 million lives during the unfortunate Nigerian civil war. Receiving state chairman of the defunct Congress of Progressive Change CPC political party at the State House, Buhari says Nigeria must remain one.
Our main objective is the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We are human beings. We have our weaknesses, and I assure you that the patriotism in us is hard-earned. We have gone through all the troubles from 15th of January 1966 to date. You know what I mean by this. We kill about 1 million of ourselves in order to keep this country together. I don't think there can be any practical experience more than that. We are Nigerians. God willing, we will remain Nigerians, and Nigeria will remain one.
Meanwhile, the military says security forces have arrested terrorists behind a deadly terror attack on the Catholic Church in southwestern city of Owo in Ondo State, which occurred 2 months ago. Arise correspondent Mary Chinde reports.
It's a robust interactive session between men of the Nigerian military and media executives in Abuja. The objective here is to foster increased collaboration with the media to end terrorism. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabor, makes some disclosures on some arrested terrorists, including those responsible for the June 5th Catholic Church attack in Owo, Ondo State. He says investigations are still ongoing and the manhunt is still on to arrest and bring all perpetrators to book.
It's my pleasure to also let you know that starting with the Owo church attack, we have arrested those behind that dastardly act. It was my intention to present them to the public, but of course, because of certain, investigations were still carrying out, I had to, on the last count, change my mind, and that otherwise I would have brought them here for you to see them. But I'd like to say that in due course, you will see them. Not just those ones, but of course those who have been at the heart of very daring attacks, those who have turned themselves to men of evil.
But that's not all. Irabor and other officials explain how the Nigerian military is making quick wins, including long-term strategies to secure the nation.
Let me say that it's not just only the armed forces that were involved. The DSS, the police, and of course other intelligence agencies were part and parcel of the effort to apprehend these criminals.
As the interaction intensifies, there is an increased call for media practitioners to shun one-sided media reportage of terror attacks. Journalists are also calling on the military to re-engage the media in swift information dissemination to counter terrorist propaganda.
Once there's deadly activities by the terrorists, and the fact that the military are slow in responding, does it mean we must go with the statement of the terrorists before we wait for the response of the military?
The moment you want to talk to the press, try to look at what could make the positive to be a positive report.
The defense chief also reassures of the military's commitment towards the safety of lives and property during the 2023 general elections. Mary Chinde, Arise News.
Right, a lot to talk about, Tundu.
Tundu?
Yeah, lots to talk about.
Well, where does one start? Oh, I don't know. I'll start with President Buhari. I don't know. I truly don't. I'll start with President Buhari and him talking about how Nigeria must remain united. And I couldn't agree more. I'm a proud Nigerian. I'm going to borrow from Aristotle when he said the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And that certainly applies to Nigeria. I cannot imagine Nigeria being less than what it is now. That's part of our greatness, our diversity, our numerical strength. We are the giant of Africa. Unfortunately, the giant is in hibernation at the moment, but we still remain the giant of Africa, and we will wake up one fine day. However, I do think that it's very important to stress that while Nigeria remains unified, we can remain unified on different terms. I hate repeating myself actually as a habit, and I find I have to do that here quite a bit. But once more, I will say that the 1999 Constitution should be binned. It should be relegated to history. Because even if you look at the exploits of the great Awolowo that we still refer to today, he would have been hamstrung if he was operating under the 99 Constitution. Would he have been able to achieve what he did? No. It was the Littleton Constitution that created that enabling environment to do what he did in the Western region. We need to reflect federalism in this country. It's extremely important that we do. And I agree with President Buhari when he talks about just the sheer waste of life and the scandal that remains, the fact that Nigerians were killing Nigerians in their millions. And it still goes really overlooked to this day. Those wounds are still festering to this day because they have never fully been addressed. And those wounds, I'm not just referring to wounds of the Southeast, all over the country, because certain events led to the Civil War. We don't ever fully address them. And this is always the problem in national discourse, even in personal discourse. When things are suppressed, they don't remain suppressed. They come out in ugly ways. And this is what we get with this calls for secession. People feel overlooked, they feel marginalized. So that whole no victor, no vanquished, sweep it under the carpet has been an abysmal failure. We all need to have a national dialogue. We need to come together under brand new terms. We have this really, top-heavy system right now that serves none of us at all. With regards to the military's feat, I'm sure yesterday was one of the happiest days for General Lucky Rabot to be able to report that, because we're all completely horrified by the senseless mass murder of worshippers in a church, in a Catholic church. They went to worship and they were killed, over 40 Nigerians, for no reason. It was so disgraceful. But I recall here on this show when we talked about the killing of al-Zawahiri, the Al-Qaeda mastermind, the terrorist that was vaporized on his balcony in Kabul. I said hope springs eternal. What that showed to me was, even though it took 20 years to catch him and kill him, even though the planning took 6 months, it happened. So if we're patient with Nigeria, it gave me hope for this country, that all of those terrorizing this country will be found. And here we start to see it. It's wonderful news.
Stephanie?
Yeah. Okay, let me start from President Muhammadu Buhari. You just avoided the word restructuring. That perhaps that is what we need at this time going forward. But it's timely for President Muhammadu Buhari to make that call that Nigeria has to remain one, and that we have to preserve this country, because for all the politicking going on, if there's no Nigeria, if there's a crisis within Nigeria, then which Nigeria are you going to rule? So I think it's a timely reminder to politicians and all stakeholders to remember that we have to keep this nation one, but on what terms, like you rightly mentioned. That is what President Buhari seemed to have avoided in the last 7 years. Yes, it's not enough to just preach unity of Nigeria, unity in under what terms? There was a term or terms under which we got our independence. There was a term under which we got our Republican status. And Nigeria was doing fine. The regions were prospering. But again, we must recall that politicians and their acts, of course, we remember the crisis from the Western region, also brought about a crisis situation, in the country, which the military did not allow the politicians to resolve, and they intervened and made a mess of the nation over time. But we remind ourselves that, look, politicians must also be careful not only about their actions, but about their utterances as we march towards the 2023 general election. There has to be a Nigeria for you to govern. There has to be peace in the country for the country to prosper. So I welcome President Buhari's timely call, but unfortunately he did not bother to think or address the issues of our faulty federalism. Perhaps because he himself was one of those behind it as a military man who has acted from the Civil War years, military president. So perhaps he's guilty, not as charged, but failure to address the issue of restructuring, which he could have done in his own, at least touch parts of what we've been talking about. Devolution of powers, state police, none the president has done. But again, we welcome the call. Perhaps we just look forward to the next president to do the needful. Yes, General Irabo, it's a good thing. My take on that, yes, they've apprehended some of these, those terrorists who carried out that dastardly act at the Catholic Church on June 5. But what I take from his submission is that there was synergy this time. The DSS was involved, the police, they were all working together. So if this is a new norm, I think they should keep it. Because the security agencies cannot afford to work in silos. If the DSS gave information, intelligence report on the pending Kuje attack and nobody did something about it, that has to be a problem. I hope going forward is part of the re-strategizing the military is doing, that they are now working as a team. After 9/11, what did the U.S. do? Because of failure of communication between intelligence agencies, they set up the Homeland Security department. And that unit coordinates. So General Irabo is at the heart of this matter, is the head of the military. So kudos that these people have been apprehended, but follow this track of getting all security agencies to work in synergy, not in silos.
Right. Because of the want of time, I'll move on to the next story. The Independent National Electoral Commission has denied doctoring and backdating documents to accommodate nominations of Senate President Ahmed Lawan, representing Yobe North, and Godswill Akpabio of Akwa Ibom Northwest, and senatorial candidates for the 2023 general elections. The electoral body debunked the media reports in a statement signed by its National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education, Festus Okoye, and made available to journalists yesterday. INEC says although the names of the duo were uploaded on its nomination portal by the APC, it did not publish their particulars, insisting that the commission has not recognized any of the two as senatorial candidates. Tunde, your thoughts on this?
Well, the waters have been really muddy on this issue. There was a statement from an INEC official saying that the INEC will just, go with whatever is presented by parties. They're not going to query it, which is against the Electoral Act. INEC has to observe primaries, and the INEC observers will submit a report. That is what INEC is supposed to work with, not what the parties are saying. So I think that confused issues. I also think the stance from APC confused issues, because there were reports that APC was trying to insist that Senator Akpabio and Senator Lawan must be fielded as candidates, and they don't have that right as a political party. It's the electoral umpire that has that right according to legislation, and it has now resulted in court cases. What we're discussing now is sub judice, because the gentleman who was supposed to be a placeholder in Senator Ahmed Lawan's thinking, Mr. Bashir Makina, has had to go to court. In his own mind, he was never a placeholder. He has lawfully gotten the ticket. So, yes. And then we also have the former DIG, Ekpan Doam. Sorry, can you help me with that?
I can remember
Ekpan Doam. So that's also in court. So it's all just a complete mess, all because there was no clarity. And why should there be no clarity? We have laws. The laws are written in black and white. So when you have officials misquoting the laws or trying to twist the law to favor certain people. This is what creates this confusion. And this is why INEC has had to now issue this statement trying to clarify the position. It's just really unfortunate. We must be governed by the rule of law at every step of the electoral process, just really every step in public life, and there should just be no confusion whatsoever. Those two gentlemen, Senator Akpabio and Senator Ahmed Lawan, made the choice on their own to get nomination forms and vie for the presidency under APC. They were unsuccessful. Senator Godswill Akpabio did not go through with it. At the last minute, he stepped down for the winner, eventual winner, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Senator Lawan went through with it. And you must know that once you've made your bed, you must lie in it. And for me, it's really quite simple. The law is the law, and it has to be upheld to the letter.
All right, Mr. Finney.
Well, as INEC really clarified anything, not really. They said they have not recognized Akpabio and Lawan, but they have not rejected their nomination either, perhaps because the matter is still in court.
Sub judice, so
yes,
yeah.
But INEC has to be firm on the law, the electoral law. Once the electoral law is unambiguous, let INEC take his stand. Then people should be going to court to challenge INEC's position, not INEC being ambiguous and allow an atmosphere of confusion. But as for Ahmed Lawan and Senator Akpabio, well, they wanted to be president, or maybe they did not really mean it. They just wanted to be part of the group donating that 100 million to the APC secretariat. But in the case of Ahmed Lawan, he was even touted as a consensus candidate, the consensus candidate that never was. But having made that choice, can't people just be honorable? Yes, you did not win. Why dashing back to pick a form, confusing the system, reorganizing another primaries, another Congress to pick you as, and now we have this whole mess. But let's just hope that the courts will rule eventually on this matter, but it's an unnecessary confusion that they have just brought into the system. If you want to be president, you just stay there. And if you cannot make it, you go and do something else. Must you go and start looking for somebody calling you a placeholder? And I said, no, I'm holding no place. I'm the candidate of the party. And that is where we are now. Well, we'll allow the courts to decide since Makina has gone to court.
All right. Okay. So I'd like to merge both topics together. Number one, we need to understand, and good thing President Buhari said about the war and everything, 1 million people dying, which is very sad in the country. But we need to understand that a house divided against itself will not stand. And what divides a house? Injustice. People feel disgruntled. They feel, oh, I have not been fairly treated. My voice has not been heard. My rights have not been respected. And nothing divides a house like that. So if we want the unity, and we all want the unity of Nigeria, we should also be ready to talk about the hard conversation of justice across board. Has every part in this country been fairly treated? Can we truly say that we can come to that table of equity and say everybody has truly been treated the way they ought to be treated? These are the conversations we had prior to independence. And I'm happy Tundu talked about the Littleton Constitution making it easy. But another part to that Littleton Constitution was the Wilkins report for minority groups.
Yeah.
Because even when we had regions, the conversation was the plight of minority groups. That was why state creation was first mooted as an idea back in the Wilkins reports in the late 50s. But today, we've even created states and it's caused more divisions because more injustices have been done. Even when we went to Lancaster House to have these talks in the late 50s, what were we talking about? Justice for every region. We all know how some people were quick to scream, Araba, that we're tired of this because it wasn't working for them then. But the same people that screamed Araba then do not scream it today again because it's favoring them. So the other parts are crying otherwise. So in having this conversation about unity, which we all want because Nigeria is a strong, big country, united, and we have a lot of great things in common, and we'll continue to pray for the unity of our country, we should not also forget the conversation about justice. And it even goes back to the insecurity situation. And I'm happy you talked about the fact that both parties are collaborating in the spirit of fairness and justice. But you remember this same Amotekun, the army reference, was this same Amotekun the law the Attorney General tried to shut down when the governors of the Southwest mooted the idea of Amotekun.
No, clearly we need more Amotekun.
So it is now obvious. It is obvious that the same group of people they tried to shut down have now become the heroes in this case.
Which also make a case for state police.
Which also makes a case for case police, but they keep shutting down that idea, and that's the talk about justice. And it even goes back to this INEC case we're talking about. It's a cry for justice. People participated in a process, then others feel, oh, okay, we have more rights, we can push you around.
And you call them placeholders.
And you call them placeholders and you put your name in there, and they're fighting back, and you say they shouldn't fight back. You're trying to hold them in the hands. It's just like slapping somebody and you're holding him in the hands not to slap back. We forget in a hurry that when you caught people in this country, it was blood that will come out. It is not chalk. So it is still that justice and that led to that talk that INEC now had to react to that. Said, oh, it was for the EC9 form we brought out before. It was not what people thought. But if we had the just system, should we even go through this rigmarole in the first place? Is INEC not supposed to be the final arbiter? And when the Electoral Commissioner, Mike Egini, that, was in charge of those elections, that gave a verdict, is he not supposed to be the final person we listen to?
Observed by INEC.
Observed by INEC. Mm-hmm. But, you see, all the things we cry in this country is just that cry against injustice. There's too much injustice in the land. The day we bring justice on the table, things will start to move. And the good thing about justice is this. A lot of people think injustice skews things in their favor. But the truth is, you gain more when there's justice and equity to balance out the society than injustice skewing things in your favor. Because whatever you gain from injustice is temporary. And it comes back to bite you. That's all on news headlines.